He was 25 years old, and he already ruled more of the earth than any man in history. His armies had never lost a battle. His empire stretched from Greece to India. He had more gold, more land, and more power than any human being alive. And when someone asked him who he actually envied, he did not name a king, a general, or a rival. He named a man who owned a cup, a cloak, and a barrel. That man was Diogenes, and what happened between them is still the sharpest definition of wealth anyone has ever written, 23 centuries before modern psychology accidentally proved it correct. Diogenes lived in a large clay jar in the marketplace of Corinth. 1 cup, 1 cloak. That was his entire fortune. Alexander, the richest man alive, had heard stories about him. So he went to see him in person. He found Diogenes sitting in the sun, doing nothing. Alexander stood over him and made an offer no one had ever refused. "Ask me for anything," he said, "and it is yours." Diogenes looked up and said, "Then stand aside. You are blocking my sunlight." The soldiers laughed. Alexander did not. He turned to his men and said something stranger than the joke itself. "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Then Diogenes threw away his cup too, because he had just watched a boy drink water with his hands, and realized he did not need it either. Here is what Alexander understood in that moment. Even if his soldiers did not, wealth was never about what a person owned. It was a gap between what a person has and what a person craves. Diogenes had closed that gap to zero. Alexander, ruler of most of the known world, still at glory he had not won. Land he had not taken. A father's shadow he had not escaped. By that definition, the man in the jar was rich. The man on the throne was poor. He was not the only one who saw it. Thousands of miles away, in a civilization with no contact with Greece at all, a Chinese philosopher named Laozi was writing almost the identical line. He who knows he has enough is rich. 2 traditions, no contact between them. The same answer. When 2 civilizations land on an identical idea, without ever meeting, that stops being philosophy. That starts looking like a fact about being human, which raises the obvious question. If 2 ancient civilizations independently landed on this, is it actually true? In 1978, psychologists accidentally tested it. They tracked down lottery winners and compared their happiness to people who had won nothing. Within about a year, the winners were barely happier than anyone else. Researchers named it hedonic adaptation. The new fortune became the new normal, and the craving, the exact thing Diogenes described, came back at full strength. That explains why more does not satisfy you for long. It does not explain why, and the why is almost insulting once you hear it. Researchers studying what economists call positional goods ask people a simple question. Would you rather earn $50,000 a year, where everyone around you earns $25,000, or $100,000 a year, where everyone around you earns $250,000? The second option is double the money. Most people chose the first, the smaller number, because it made them richer than their neighbors. Your brain is not built to ask, do I have enough? It is built to ask, do I have more than the people around me? That is why a raise feels incredible for exactly as long as it takes to learn a co-worker got a bigger one. Alexander had more than any human alive, and he still lost to a feeling that could not be outspent. Researchers studying social media found the same pattern today. The more people passively scroll through other people's highlight reels, the more envious and less satisfied they become, even though nothing in their own lives has actually changed. Same mechanism the Greeks described 23 centuries ago. Different marketplace. That is all. If your craving resets no matter what you earn, and it is measured against other people instead of your own needs, then there may be no income, no house, no number on a screen that ever closes the gap. The gap is not a math problem. It is a setting in your brain, and by default, that setting has no ceiling. So, what do you do with a craving that never turns off by itself? Epicurus ran a private audit on his own wants. Natural and necessary, like food and shelter, those you satisfy and move on. Natural but not necessary, like a nicer version of that food or shelter, those you enjoy but never chase. Empty, wanted only for comparison, like status or fame, those you starve on purpose, because they never actually finish paying. Diogenes ran a blunter version of the same test. Before wanting something, ask whether you need it or whether you only want it because someone else has it. Before the bigger house, ask which one you are actually solving. Shelter, or a feeling you want your neighbor to have about you. Neither man thought poverty was pleasant. They were making the same claim. The mind that stops comparing stops suffering. The mind that keeps comparing will suffer at any income. Alexander walked away from Diogenes and kept conquering for 8 more years, until he died at 32, having never once said he had enough. Diogenes stayed in his jar, and as far as history records, wanted for nothing until the day he died. Two men, only one of them, by the only definition that ever really mattered, was rich. Empires fall. Gold gets buried, dug up, and buried again. The jar, as far as anyone knows, is still standing. So here's the question worth sitting with after this ends. Not how much do you have? Not even how much do you want? But this. Has anyone ever actually taught you how much is enough? If this changed how you think about money, subscribe. There's more that's coming. And in the comments, name one thing you want right now that you do not actually need. Just one. Be honest.